The Most Definitely podcast. Here we talk about life, Christ, and everything encouraging. I am your host, Isaiah Malone, and today I have an excellent show planned for you guys. Side note, don't forget to check out my YouTube page. On there, I do our prayers, everything, and so I want to encourage you to check that out. But without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Most definitely. Hey, what's going on? What's going on, y'all? Listen, I'm excited about right now, man. I got something excellent in store for you guys. I have a guy actually here with me, and man, I'm telling you, he reached out to me and just told me his story. It was impactful, man. I just thought about it for a couple nights and just really was meditating on it, and just it was something that was real impactful in my life, man. And it really made me think and just stretch my imagination as to who just, people are in general. And then it kind of got more conversations started with employees, with people I work with. I mean, we just went deep into this conversation. But listen, y'all, I have a man here who is a pastor. He was a pastor, but he retired from pastoring. And I mean, he has a long rap sheet here, man. He was in the entertainment business. You know what I mean, was delivered from different types of addictions that he's talked about here, studying different religions and everything. And I'm telling you, man, when I had a chance to speak with him, he just expanded my mind, had me thinking, just really about relationships with people on a human level. And listen, guys, ladies and gentlemen, listen, I just want to introduce today. His name is most definitely Jerry Zayer. Now, listen, did I say that right, Jerry? Jerry Zayer.
Got it, my friend. Oh, you got it, my friend.
Okay.
It's so good to be here with you and your listeners.
Yes, most definitely. I'm excited about this. So, Jerry, how you been doing?
Well, I'm doing great. It's been fun to be able to have and sharing conversations with people like you and around the world. I've had some podcasts, and you know what? I think we're all searching for some ways to bring some sense of healing and unity when we feel our world is so polarized right now.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I really truly agree. And Jerry, as we was talking the other day, you were speaking about some things that really had me just, truly, just really thinking deeper about, just relationships with people. We're gonna get into that and talk about that. But I wanted to first, start out by asking you the question, like, how did you get started? Just communicating with other people, becoming a pastor, and all of that good stuff. Like, what kind of led you down that journey?
Well, thank you. And it is as you mentioned, I had my degree in speech and theater. I went out to LA. I was in the entertainment business, and I had done 50 different dramas and musicals. I performed at the comedy club, sang on the Johnny Carson show, which kind of dates me. It's kind of like, but that was before David Letterman show. But it, what I found when I'm out there, the question was always pressing me, what are you willing to sell your soul for?
Mm,
Because I found myself having to compromise a lot of my character to move ahead.
wow.
I'd be like, this one guy says, I was getting some resume shots, some headshots to give out to agents and people. And he says, look, just take your clothes off and let me get some pictures. Cause I was 23. I was pretty good looking at those age. And he said, I'll give you $100. Well, $100 to somebody in 1979 who was working minimum wage, trying to, it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do it. But cocaine was big, and people would say, hey, just come to the party, bring your resume, we'll do this and that. And I just found myself really losing that part within me until the
Mm,
point where I was empty inside. I mean, I was masking my own emptiness, my depression, my loneliness with drugs and alcohol. And I could tell that if I followed this path, I was going to be dead in 5 years.
wow.
And so I had to get out. I had to get out of that environment. I had to get out of those people. And that's really when I turned back to God. I mean, I grew up in a church as a young person, but it was a very legalistic, very judgmental church. And in that church, the minister was like, you're going to go to hell if you dance, drink, smoke, do all this. And
Man.
you're going to go to hell, for all these things, And I'm like, Oh God. So I mean, I like just left it because that minister, it was like, and if you're Baptist, you're going to go to hell. If you're Catholic, you're going to go to hell. You have to believe like us.
Yeah.
And I didn't buy it. My friends were good people. They had good hearts. And I didn't even understand anything much about God, but I just knew about love and what I
Mm,
saw the basic teaching of Jesus about love. So anyhow, I had left all that. I'm out there in LA, and that's when I got out and I began my own spiritual journey of
mm,
reconnecting with God, reading, uh, traveling. I mean, I was in India. I studied there some of the world religions. And then I found out that, the teachings of Jesus that I had learned as a young person, there was a lot of some similarities. They weren't exactly the same, but like the golden rule
yeah.
was in all of these world religions. And then I got to know people from different religions, and they had this love in their heart just like I did. And we started building some relationships, and that opened up my whole mind
Mm.
to seeing God in a much bigger way.
Wow, that's incredible. And that is something like I was excited too, actually, to get a little bit deeper into, because when we was talking about this the other day, I mean, it really, I haven't had a healthy conversation like that in a long time. Because everything now is just one sided. It's kind of like, a mindset that just contributes just to that, space. And it's kind of difficult to go outside of the box. Like, for example, if a
Right.
person is talking about football, it's kind of hard for a person to step in the room and say, hey, I like golf. And you're like, hold on, we talking about football. So it's kind of like, to have that conversation, it just kind of like just completely just, kills the vibe of, whoever's talking about, the sport in the majority. But, like hearing the conversations or just meditating on the conversation that you and I had, just kind of like really helped me to see the importance of connecting with people on a human level and really just dealing with them, with, as people. You know what I mean? I think that nowadays religion is so strong to where it's like we were just discussing, it's a cult unto itself, you know what I'm saying? But not like really accepting people just for, just who they are, you know what I mean? And even in, now growing and becoming, who the Lord is calling me to be, and just seeing different, what do you call it? Different
Well, it's points of view and
points of
and
view.
different and different, their perspective. And of
Yeah,
course, that's the whole thing. Jesus, what was the greatest commandment? Jesus said, "Love your God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind.
yeah,
Love your neighbor as yourself."
most
So we have to
definitely.
first love ourselves. We have to learn how to care for ourselves,
Hmm.
and then we're called to love others. And I think some of your listeners maybe they've had some bad experiences in
Yeah,
the church. Maybe they've even turned away and they're trying to find an understanding. And I always say to people, don't give up on God. God's not going to give up on you, even though maybe you grew up or you just don't buy into some of the doctrines of a church or the way it is. But God is much bigger than any of our denominations or church.
yeah.
And I think that's part of it, is to help people ask questions. It's
Hmm.
okay to ask questions. When
Yeah.
I grew up, if you asked questions or you doubted, you were a sin. Oh, it was terrible. You can't ask. So like the question was to me, like, I learned about Native Americans, and man, their spirituality was deep. Some of
Wow.
their writing, it was wonderful.
Mm.
But we saw them. The old school in church was, those are heathens. I mean,
Wow.
well, that's not true. That's just not true.
Yeah, yeah, and that's so encouraging to hear, because now living in the society that we're in, it just seems like what is getting to a place to where it's all just separate groups. There's a lot of division, and this conversation, turning walls into bridges. Learning how to deal and connect with different people and learning how to build something that can last, something that can be fruitful, because I mean, like even when we dive into Christ, and we was talking about this the other day, like how Jesus went to the woman that was at the well, and at that time, the Samaritans and the Jews were at odds with each other, but here it is, he created a conversation, built a conversation with this lady, and from that she was able to receive and to feel everything that he was trying to give to her, and she received it, and she just went back, started telling and talking to other people about it. And he didn't talk to her about anything religious. He really
Well,
developed a relationship and was saying like,
yeah.
listen, this is the important. He didn't say anything like, it was just a relationship, and that relationship sparked something in her, and she went and ran and told everybody, So
Well, and the great thing was, you know, um, here she was. She'd been married like 5 times, divorced 5 times, right?
man,
I mean,
real life.
he didn't judge her. He didn't shame her about that.
Yeah,
He just he it, and in those days, a man talking to a woman was so taboo. So
yeah,
he reached her and gave her validation as a human being. And
yeah,
she was of a different faith,
yeah.
okay? And so he says to her, "You worship the God you do not know. We worship the God we know. But one day we will worship in
Together,
spirit
yeah.
and truth."
That's good.
Yeah. And so I think the whole point was he wanted people to know God. He
Mm,
wasn't so much focused on him.
yeah,
He wanted people who were pushed out, the disenfranchised, the sinners, people in that way, and for them to feel they were valued.
man, that's
And
good.
and I think so much now, a lot of times, I don't know how we got in this way, but a lot of ministers are very judgmental. It's
Hmm.
like, if you don't believe like us, then this isn't going to be it. And then if you wrap politics into it, and some of these,
Yeah.
Christian preachers have said, like, if you don't vote for this president or vote for that person,
Hmm.
you aren't not just religious, you're not American.
Yeah.
Well, wow, now you've just like polarized. And religion can be used in a negative way.
Exactly.
And I say, don't blame God because of our human being sin.
Mm.
People are misusing, like, the teachings, like the Crusades. Christianity did that. Look at ISIS. There was ISIS who took some of the scriptures in the Quran and manipulate them, so
Yeah.
that a lot of people, my friends, they thought all Muslims were like the ISIS. They thought all the Muslims hated Christians, and we were wanted to kill the people in the West.
Yeah.
Well, in reality, the ISIS killed more Muslims than they did Christians,
Yeah.
and the ISIS was only 10,000 people. Muslims were 1.2 billion in the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And most of my Muslim friends said, Jerry, you know, they are perverting the teaching of the Quran, just like some people who said they're Christians would pervert the teachings of Jesus.
Yeah. And that is a really heavy conversation. What dealing with, like you said, like just even a one that just talks and says like, hey, you know what, I heard some things, I spoke about some things from a different faith, a different religion, and to bring that up and talk about that and from a place of, like being whole. I think that that's the biggest thing. Like even when, Christ went around, he went to different places. You know what I'm saying? He went and talked to, those who didn't believe. And, it was, he went and spoke to different, officers and everything. He spoke to everybody. But I think that the impression that was left when he left was like, man, this is a real guy. And I don't know if you actually seen this show, Jerry, and and our listeners that's listening, I want to encourage you guys to check it out. It's called The Chosen, and I love what they did in this show.
Yes.
They brought Jesus to a human, more like human, that you can connect with him. And I think that this is so important. In order to fully connect with God, you have to understand him on a human level as well too. One of the reasons he became human, I truly honestly believe, is so that he can connect with us. Of course, he wanted to deal with the sin issue, but he still wanted to connect with us, relationship. You know what I mean? The same like you and I, having a conversation. You know what I'm saying? And I think that that's what it was. He bled. He was human. Like, you know what I'm
He
saying?
was.
Like
He
he
was.
ate food. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't like just down here starving, but I mean, he was a human. And I think that when we deal with the human issue, and that's what you and I was talking about, and I felt so relieved after talking to you. I'm like, okay, I spoke to somebody who understands that, we're dealing with a condition that, everyone faces, everyone deals with, whether it's pain or hurt or, joy or happiness. All of those are human, feelings that we feel, right? And so it's like, I think that like this conversation is healthy. And so I wanted to ask a question, Jerry. Do you believe that, with understanding, and with all the different, people that you spoke to, that there is room, right, to be able to sit in the same room and build something of value, and just have something that we can say like, okay, look, you know what, this is something that we've learned together, and now we can grow with this and move forward.
Right. Well, yes, I do, of course. And that's why I wrote the book, The Peacemaker's Path, Multi-Faith Reflections to Deepen Your Spirituality.
Hmm.
I didn't want to write a whole book of theology. This is a very practical. What I've done is I've taken 6 themes, 6 kind of principles that I have found are in all of our world religions.
Mm.
And then I have it's 40 days, so you can read like 15 minutes. You can read one day in 15 minutes, and it has a reflection. Then it has scriptures from all of the different world religions.
Mm.
And then it has a prayer from a faith leader and some questions to think about. And the idea was, when we start to realize that the people who are Buddhist, or people who are Jewish, or people who are Muslim,
Hmm.
that in the Quran or in the Hindu scripture, the Sikh, the Baha'i, that when you hear that these teachings are similar, they're not exactly alike, but they're very similar in the teachings.
Yeah,
That you can see God has reached out over time to people where they are and helping them understand the truths.
that's good.
So, like an example, the golden rule is in all of our religions.
The love
Or we
yourself.
speak of, yeah, we speak about, um, Jesus says, you reap what you sow.
Hmm.
I love that image. What you put out there, you will get. What you reap, uh, what you sow. Yeah, what you reap is what you sow. So what you sow, what you plant, you will reap. If
Yeah,
you plant goodness and love, it will come to you. If you plant greed and anger, it will come back.
yeah,
Well, in the Hindu and Buddhist traditions, it's karma. And people have heard what karma, that's bad karma, that's good karma.
yeah,
Well, that's the exact same principle that
yeah,
Jesus get. And I think that's a universal law. I
yeah,
really think that the sense of what you put out there, it will come back to you, and even maybe more, And so, like, I've tried to give my life of love and generosity and care and compassion, and I must say, I've received much more than I've given.
yeah.
And
That's good.
when I lived in vengeance, in my early days, I was vengeful. I was angry. All that did was eat me up. I
Yeah,
mean, it just eat me up. And so I had to learn how to forgive and to find some peace. And those themes are there. So that was the reason why I wanted to write the book. And I wanted to be able to have it where people who maybe they've never even known somebody who was a Sikh. Maybe they saw somebody with a turban,
yeah,
and they go, "Oh, that's a Sikh." Or maybe they knew, somebody was Muslim, but they don't know, never read the Quran. Well, this gives you just some verses, some scriptures, so that you
yeah,
can okay, I can see that, God is much bigger than any of that,
yeah.
and trying to speak to us in many ways.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. Hey Jerry, your actual screen froze there. I'm not for sure if it's still like visible on your side, but your screen froze up on this
Okay.
side. I can still hear you and everything. It's just that it froze.
Okay. Okay.
Um, but yeah, while we get that moving as well, I did want to share something, actually concerning what you was talking about in that mode. There was, I've realized something even in my Christian walk and my Christian journey. You know what I mean, and just seeing how that there is something that is taught, and it's kind of it's kind of in a way it deals with, and I'm not for sure if this is the right word, but like your subconscious is something that
Mhm.
when you hear of something of a different faith, immediately, you get this response as if like they don't know anything. And then, you know what I mean, you'll say like, and then you'll have this feeling that rises up on the inside of you as if all that you know is right. And you know what I'm saying? And it's just, it separates and it divides. And what it does is it breaks, like what we were talking about. Instead of building bridges, it burns them. You know what I mean? In a way, it separates, us from, being able to, truly come together as a people and just really just have an opportunity to talk and to fellowship with each other, and not just have a religious conversation on what is right or what is wrong concerning what we know, but to be able to just commune with each other and have relations, you know what I mean, so far as in just being humans and conversating. And I think that
And I
oh yeah, and I think that that is something that is most definitely needed, everywhere. And oh yeah, Jerry, for some reason your camera's still frozen.
Oh, it's not. You look fine to me.
Well, yours is like for some reason it's froze. It's not
Now, over on my side, you're moving fine. I'm moving. Neither one of us is frozen.
really. Oh wow,
Yep.
I'm not
So
for sure.
hopefully, but hopefully the audio is not frozen.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, the audio's still solid though. Yeah, so the audio's
yeah.
good.
So the thing I think it's true. Your point of view when you meet somebody, it's the same way. It's the same way if you meet somebody who's from Asian, or you've never met somebody from another country. You have a stereotype of them,
Yeah,
or you know, uh, you have a stereotype of an old white guy, and like me, oh,
yeah,
those guys are, they're all these white, or whatever, or somebody who's a person of color, and I think the why you and I connected so quickly was you had a heart that was open.
yeah.
I had a heart that was open. And I compare it a lot of times to being married. I've been married 37 years. Now you've been married. How many years have you been married?
12. Well, 10 plus. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
10
10
plus
plus.
years.
Okay.
Yeah,
But so in your life, being married, you've got, when I first got married, I thought I was right and she was wrong. She needed to toe the line. Well, of course, that didn't work, right? My
yeah,
wife was independent. She had her own mind. I love that about her. And what I realized was I needed to learn how to listen. I
mm,
needed to learn how to hear. And when you hear each other, you can work through anything if
that's
you
really
really
good.
want to, right? But you have to have a heart that's open. And so, I think sometimes people like with politics, they don't really want to hear somebody else's point of view.
Yeah,
They just want to put their point of view, or like Christian, I don't really want to even hear why somebody else is Catholic, or somebody else is this, or
yeah,
maybe why somebody else is agnostic.
yeah,
I mean, part of it is hearing each other's journey without judgment.
yeah. And oh,
And
that's
and that
good.
doesn't
That's
mean
good,
it
Jerry.
doesn't mean that I have to give up my faith.
Yeah,
I'm going to be Christian, but I actually have learned more about God
yeah,
and more about my own faith as I've learned from other people, from other cultures
yeah,
and other faiths.
yeah. And you know,
Why are
and
we
and
Go
you know,
ahead.
and I was gonna say, Jerry, that is so very good, because what that shows is that, you know, you brought up, being married, and that is a great illustration of, relationships, you know what I mean, of different faiths, because you're coming together, and there are two different, point of views. But when you come together, you find a way to be able to put one in one, or one and one together to get two. But then we realize we need to do this together and walk together, because we can accomplish much more. And I think, Jerry, what you said is so big, and it's now I've noticed this, because we talked about it as well. Like, I have friends that are homosexuals. I have friends that
Right.
are that I know for sure don't profess Christ, but these are really good people. And I think that what happens is, because of being a Christian, and I think this is just something that psychological is taught, that you have to confess, or you have to witness, and you have to, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, you know what I mean? And it's wild, because when Jesus approached her, he never said, "I'm Jesus." You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? He talked to her. He kind of had a conversation, so to speak, to where, she was invited in. And I think that that's the biggest thing, Jerry. When I talk to people, I had a friend that told me something that was very powerful, and I wrote it down. He said, in order to correct a person, first you have to build a relationship with them. And he was saying that from, you know, just with anything, you know what I'm saying? You have to first get a relationship with a person before you can understand them, before you can start to share different things with them. And if it's needful, you know what I mean, to share a different point of view, or whatever it might be. But I think that what really hinders, you know what I'm saying, us, in general is religion. And I think religion has played a huge part in, separating, great things from happening, you know what I mean? And from being able to move forward, you know what I'm saying? And also growing and learning from one another. So, I think that is one of the biggest distractions, and that is a hindrance. There's no bridge that can be built, when we are divided just as people first. You get what I'm saying? It's a
Right.
people first, you know what I'm saying? And so, yeah.
So let me give you a positive example, because when religion, or let's just say love, when God,
Hmm.
is when we base in that sense of love, the power that can change lives. So there was a temple, a Jewish temple in my city,
Hmm.
and some young people, they were 18 and 19. They eventually got caught, but they sprayed swastikas on the temple, right?
Wow.
Trying to scare them, because the swastika is a symbol of Hitler, and of course hated all the Jews, killed 6 million Jews in the Holocaust, and the idea was to put fear into these people. That was
Wow.
on a Thursday night. Over the social media, I mean, nothing, it wasn't on the TV or anything yet. We just came together on a Monday evening, not on the weekend, on a Monday evening when everybody had to work all day long. Still, they came out at 7 o'clock. The synagogue could only seat 450 people, and there was
Wow.
almost 1,000 people. There was people in the parking lot, and there was, people who were Christian, Muslims, agnostic. We didn't even know what people believed, but they said, we stand in solidarity, we stand in love. That
Mm.
love is stronger than hate.
Yeah. Hey, and
And
love
and
is
my
stronger.
friend, that had such a ripple effect.
Hmm.
That had such a ripple effect that eventually they caught this 18 and 19-year-old. They lived outside, in a small town, and because they had video cameras at the temple in the parking lot, and they had all these, Confederate flag and swastikas and stuff. Well, the guy went to jail for as a hate crime. I mean,
Wow.
his life is ruined. He's 18 years old. He's going to be, 12 years in federal penitentiary. And
Wow.
I wanted to go to him, and I wanted to ask, do you really think that one action you did really did what you wanted? Because it screwed up your life, and all these good things came from it.
I was just gonna say that, like, it's amazing how that one bad act, created a ripple effect for something good and positive to happen from all of these different faiths coming together and standing together in unity. You know what I mean? Like,
Because we chose to. Yes, because we chose to say, we
wow.
we will not let this we will not let this violence stand.
Yeah.
And I have friends on so many different spectrums, politically and religiously. But if you look at any of these situations in our lives, whenever you take such a hard stand
Hmm.
against the other people, you know, I mean, they're human beings too.
Yeah.
And
I
so
mean, that's
somehow, and that's what I love about Martin Luther King Jr. His movement was nonviolent.
yeah.
He stood up against the powers and principalities. He stood up against what was wrong, but he did it in nonviolence.
Now, see, you
And that
speaking now.
was a changing of
Yeah,
hearts.
you speaking now because he fought in such a way that he did it, in a human way, but he understood that there was something, at work in the spirit. You know what I mean? And that is what I believe it. That is what it really boils down to. Really recognizing the issue that's at hand and seeing that it's not each other, but at the same time, like, we have to get to a place to where we can be able to communicate one with another without that that friction. And I think that, and I say that from experience, because when I hear of different faiths, and sometimes it's even with different music. I was listening to the other day someone on YouTube. His name's Bishop Noel Jones, and he said the funny part about his wife was that when she heard the newer generation music, she would turn it off because it was the devil and everything, you know what I mean? But
Right,
she
right.
would turn her music on from her time. And he was saying something that was so powerful for the time that we live. It's now where, whatever generation we grew up in, or whatever church we grew up in, or wherever we grew up in, we accepted the doctrine of it so much so to where it became a way of life, but at the same time, what it did was it separated us from really being able to connect with each other, which is ultimately the goal. Like if you look at, you know what I'm saying, what Cain did, you know, and God, you know, spared him. And he said, you know, I'm gonna put some on your life so nobody can kill you. You know, it was more of a mercy, you know, than anything. And you see from that the hand or the relationship or the mercy of God, even on someone who did something wrong to someone who was right. And I think that when we develop that mental attitude, you know, and have that mindset, it will crush a lot of barriers. Because you know, truth be told, like when you said talking about the different Hindus, and you know, all we see is perception. We don't get a chance to sit down and have conversations without religion, you know, without those barriers. Those barriers divide us. I really believe it does. Christ
And
doesn't
it's
divide, you know, when it
right.
deals with human life, you know.
And I think our stereotypes of people, and so
Hmm.
we put a whole group of people as a section, you know,
Yeah.
and that is not doing justice, so that we see each person as an individual, and we respond. You know, I love the parable of the sheep and goats. So Jesus, and you can Google the sheep and goats if you don't know. It's in Matthew, and it's a couple different of the Gospels. But the
Hmm.
parable of the sheep and goats that Jesus says was that the criteria for who would be cast into Hades and who would go into the righteous, it wasn't
Mm.
any doctrine. It wasn't being baptized in a certain way, immersed or sprinkled. It wasn't, you know, saying the right words just correctly. It was how they treated the least of these. And they said, well, Jesus, where did we see you when, you know, because these people treated the least of these who were in prison, who were poor, who were naked, and he cared for them. And he said, when you do it to the least of these, you do it unto me.
That's good.
And so that's really, I think, at the criteria is how will we reach and care for one another. And you know, sometimes
Wow,
some
that's
people
really
get,
good, Jerry.
well, I
That's
just
really
think that's
good.
true.
That's so good. That's so good. Oh my goodness. Listen, let's take a 20-second break right quick.
Okay.
I'm gonna throw something up here on the screen, and we'll be back in 20 seconds. Hold on, you guys.
Hello, want to get some Just Jesus wear? Head over to our website at justjesusclothing.com and pick up some Just Jesus wear. We have many things to choose from. We have clothes for men, clothes for women, and we have so much more on the way. I want to let you know that we're so thankful for the love and support you have shown our ministry. Thank you so much again. We love you and God bless you. JustJesusClothing.com.
Also, guys, we are back. We are back. Thank you, guys. We just wanted to take a 20-second break right quick. And Jerry, you was actually talking about that something that was so powerful and profound, man. It was excellent. But how Jesus was talking about treating the least of these. And, like, my mind started to think, like, into really just what the least of these mean. You know what I mean? And it could be just someone that doesn't fully understand, you know, what you know the Lord is asking of them, or someone that doesn't fully understand their value, their worth, their potential, their impact, you know, that they have, you know, on people. You know what I'm saying? And that really boils down to really just seeing, you know, people as people and not as like, you know what I'm saying, religion, you know, and I keep bringing this up, Jerry, because you know, that today is what our world is kind of just, you know, balanced on. You know what I'm saying? And religion is not just in the form of God and Satan. It's in, you know, our character and how we treat each other and traditions that was passed down. You know what I'm saying? You know, all of those things. And I think that kind of brings division on so much, not kind of, but it brings division on so many levels, you know. And like even at the job, you know, like, how, you know, it's just, you know, how a woman and a man, you know, because I was talking to a lady at my job and she was telling me how she felt that she had to prove herself in so many ways just because she was a lady. And that, in a way, is very similar to our conversation talking about, you know, just the human life, the human value, you know, minus religion, just the value of human beings, and knowing that we are capable of loving great. We are capable of building bridges. I always say this, like my wife asked me the other night. I said, babe, she asked me, why do you want me to do this? I said, babe, you know what? Because when we build together, we can do something incredible. One person can build a house, but it'll take them a lifetime. But if we work together, what we don't know, the next person can know. Like the house I live in, I guarantee it wasn't a whole Christian that built this house. It was different faiths, different beliefs, different, you know what I mean? But it all came together for the purpose of me being in this house. And, God is not like, hey, don't stay in that house. Somebody from, built this house. I think that like that is the attitude of today. You know what I mean? Oh, you know what? I want only my own, and that's not okay. That really damages people, man, and pushes
So,
further
and,
religion.
and I think, as you're talking about the power of joining together of people, and I'll give you an example, and this is one of the stories I try to share a lot of my stories, my experiences
Hmm.
when I've worked with people, so that the book is very kind of personal in that way. But when I was a pastor in this church in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and we were having a bunch of drive-by shootings in that city, which was about 100,000 people in the city, maybe one homicide a month. You might have 12 in a year,
Mm.
and we started having one a week. We started having this violent, this kind of rising, and when I was there, and then I had a member of my own congregation who she just gotten married, and there was a guy who was high on drugs. He was trying to steal her purse from her.
Mm.
Uh, she was getting into her car, trying to steal her purse. She thought she was trying to give the money to him because he was high on drugs. He got threatened and he killed her. So
Wow.
now that hits home, right? I'm like, wow, we've got to do something about this.
Yeah.
So a small group of us started gathering together, and pastors got together and just some other people from other faiths. I mean, we just started, we were concerned. There's only like about 10 of us. And we started going when somebody was killed. We went to that place and we started pouring this water. We pray over the water, then we pour the water on the place where sometimes you could still see the blood
Mm.
on the cement or
Wow.
the asphalt. So we
Wow.
pour the blood. We sang "Heal the Land." One of these guy wrote this song, "Heal the Land," and we prayed over it. So now that started, and in a period of about 3 months, we started having people of all faiths joining together in this circle, and we started praying. Then we'd sing, "Let there be peace on earth."
Wow.
And after about 6 months, and the wonderful thing is it's all tracked in statistics, because I show this in the book, that
Mm.
in that period of time, 6 months later, everything started to decrease. And over the years, I moved away. And now when I go back, when you look at those years that happened, that year, that was the highest amount of homicides in that city. And what I believe, because the power of love and the power of prayer broke that
Yeah.
cycle of violence in some way.
That's good.
And I think there's such power. And one of the whole chapters and themes in my book is the power of prayer,
Mm.
and it talks about the different ways of praying, but the power of that in our life.
Yeah.
Part of the thing is I've realized my understanding of God is different than what I grew up.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this, of how what our beliefs when we grew up, just because somebody told us that doesn't mean it's just there.
Yeah.
We can evolve, we change. God brings new understanding.
Hmm.
So my understanding of God was, when I grew up, God was this being out in the universe somewhere, I don't know what the address was, but it was out there. And God was like going to judge me, boom, and strike down. But God was there, when God wanted to. And I would pray to God, it'd be like Santa Claus. I want this, I want that. And maybe God would give it to me, maybe God wouldn't. Well, now I've evolved and see God in a much bigger, expansive way. God is
Yeah.
spirit. God is present in all things, in us and in things. So if the atom is at the very, they say the universe, the essence of the universe is in an atom, we're there. The spark of the divine. Christ is in us. God is in us as a human being.
Mm.
So now I see God as this, this kind of energy consciousness of the universe
Wow.
that we can draw on together.
Yeah.
And I mean, can you imagine if just everybody in the world of all faiths would join together for prayer, for peace and healing? I believe things would change and hearts would change.
Wow. Yeah, that's so incredible. I believe, yeah, that's what it's gonna take, a coming together, you know what I'm saying? And that is ultimately what it boils down to, you know what I'm saying? Really seeing, that like, to be the bridge, right? That where we can most definitely walk together and be able to grow together, be able to learn from one another. And that's the thing, like, no one questions the different foods. There's no question
Right,
about that. No one
right,
questions
right,
that.
right.
No one, you know what I'm saying? Hey, you know what I mean? It's just one of those things. But, and Jerry, you said something too. I think that we have to drive a little bit further on this
Okay.
is, knowing how that, when, you learn from those experiences, how like how powerful prayer was. And I think that, like, nowadays, the question I want to ask you is, do you believe that, prayer, you know what I mean, is something that we should most definitely be doing in these times, dealing with, what's going on now with our COVID and, different things like that, and the reason I asked that question is because we have all of these different faiths. And if we all come together, like what we're talking about, there's no question, I believe we can come up with something, right, that could, just cure it, no question. You know what I mean? But I think that that division, that race, that religion, whatever, one would name it, that divides, keeps us from building a bridge. Would you say that prayer is a necessary thing concerning, that, coming together?
I think so. And I think now I see prayer not changing God, but changing me.
That's good.
Prayer is about opening myself up so that I come to a new understanding and wisdom. And when we open ourselves up to prayer, it maybe motivates me to say, oh, I need to change this about myself. I need to take this step of reconciliation or reach out to somebody who maybe I just ignored or I spoke harshly to them. And I realize, if I want to be a peacemaker, if I want to bring healing, if I want to turn walls into bridges, I start praying about that. God, help me
Wow.
understand how I can do that. And then, it's amazing how God will bring somebody into our life or somebody's listening today and they're feeling so broken and separate. And then they listen to this podcast and then they realize God's trying to speak to me
Yeah.
and how I can find some love for myself and others. Because, really, until you love yourself, until you know that you're good and valued and that you don't listen to other people trying to tell you,
Yeah.
and society puts all these expectations. You're never good enough. You're not that. And even sometimes, people in our past tell, and we listen to that voice. And rather than listening to the voice of God and that goodness inside of us and saying, I am a child of God. I am good.
Yeah.
And I know that God loves me and I need to care for myself.
Mm. Yeah.
Then we can start to be and love others because now
Yeah.
we have something to give.
And that's so incredible. That's really incredible, and the reason I say that is because when you think about, how God through Christ loved us. And and it blows my mind, Jerry, it really does, because, he's always loving, and that love is what brought me out of a lot of different things, from depression, from
Yep.
fears, from different, thoughts. I mean, it brought me out of so much. And I think that as we give that what was given to us to others, it's a never ending well. It's kind of like, something that, your cup is full, and then you give, water to someone for them to drink, and they're like, wow, this water tastes good. Like, and that is what I believe. And Jerry, I'm beginning to see it more now than ever. Even being the age I am now, like, I know it took a second for me to begin to just start to see it. But I just really believe that basic communication and loving one another and talking to them and valuing them as a person is what is the biggest step for a person to change, to transition, to, think differently. Guards get dropped when there's love.
Yes. And
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
no, I just think, and when we can let go of shame and guilt for ourselves,
Mm,
Jesus does not want us to feel shame and guilt. Yes, okay, guilt, maybe if we've done something wrong, we can change it. But shame is about your personhood. And nobody should carry shame.
yeah,
And when we know we're loved and we can be loved, then we can give something to others.
that's
And
good.
so I think that's very powerful, and I want people to know that, because um, I just think so many people today feel inadequate.
Hmm.
They're angry, they're frustrated, and because they haven't found that inner peace.
Yeah,
And that's something that it's taken me a lot of years to work on and to work on with. And I write about that in the book, because I think that finding inner peace is, you got to work at it.
yeah,
You got to work at this relationship with the divine and ourselves to bring healing
that's
in our
good.
life. And in some ways it is like marriage, because when I was first got married, I thought, as I said before, I was like trying to convince her that my point of view is the only one, when I realized there are many different ways of looking at something. It's just not
Yeah.
my way or the highway.
Hmm.
And when I saw, oh, we can come at this from a different point of view,
Yeah,
or this way, and then you start to realize other people have points of view too.
that's good.
And maybe none of us have the truth, right?
Yeah.
We don't have all the truth. But maybe the more we grow together and we listen to one another,
Hmm.
listening and sharing together, we can find
Wow.
ways of resolving things.
That's good. That's good. You know what? Hey, Jerry, I got to piggyback on that. I got to,
Okay.
because that is so profound. When we get it, like, just like if a person picks a book up, we all read this same book, but we all come out with something different. And it comes from what we are, it comes from what we wanted to obtain from whatever we read, and just our minds, how they think. And this is the key. This is so important. You know what? And this is the honest to God truth. I've spoken to so many different people. And when I speak to people, the biggest thing that I take away from it is that people want to communicate. But here's the thing. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of guilt. There's a lot of anxiety from life's experiences. And then also from other relationships. When people talk with people and stuff, it's kind of difficult to communicate. But here's the thing. You said something that was so key, is listening. Because what was so awesome about what is I even just recently just started to stumble up on this even more and more and more. When I opened my ears and started to listen, it really enlightened and helped me to expand my thinking. And I was able to be like, okay, whoa, okay, wow. Because you said it. Like, there's so many different ways to get to this, to get to an understanding, right? You know what I mean? Especially like if you're thinking about building something, or if you know what I mean, it could be an easier way. I forget who that was in the Bible that used their skill to make the labor not so hard. You know what I'm saying? But it's a skill. It's something that's given. It's a way of life. It's looking at it, and I think that that's the thing, Jerry. It's listening. It's getting to the place to where, we can listen. But I truly believe that what you just said, a lot of people are so hurt. They're feeling so much guilt that it's difficult for them to get to the place to really listen and to receive, because, you know what I mean? Just our different, just the barriers that are created, from, just the life experiences. And that's why we wanted to talk about on this show, how these walls can build bridges, and how the experiences and things that we've gone through, how it can, really help encourage someone else. And then also from what we give, whether it's a hammer or some nails or whatever, this person, whoever we giving them to, could ultimately one day build us a house, or anything. You just never know what small thing you give, how it can turn around, not for the sake of that, but how it can benefit you. And that could be a conversation, a hello, a thank you, that was an awesome thing you did, or, I love what you did, and encouraging. You just never know how that small piece of whatever it might be could encourage somebody and, just strengthen them and make them, say like, you know what, I'm important, I'm valued, and this is something that I want to continue to do, through encouragement. So yeah.
And I think what I've realized is we have to watch like Facebook or email. Some people will put things on Facebook and they'll blow up and they'll have this whole thing that other people put on because they're not really talking face to face. They aren't hearing one another. They're not getting each other's expression, and they're hearing the same way with email. You send an email to somebody and you fire off, you're upset about something, or you say something and you don't mean for it to sound that way, but they take it a wrong way, right?
Yeah.
And you just have to really realize so much is about the relationship, being in person with one another, and how we can, and that's why talking and listening, and as I say, I've grown a lot in that way, because what I've realized is when I, like in my relationship with my wife, I've learned how to compromise and adjust. And when you can hear each other, you can usually find a solution to the problem.
That's good.
Like when so in my church, I had people who voted for Trump. I had people who voted, against for Hillary. And in some ways, I was so proud that we could stay together in relationship and still have different political points of view.
Yeah.
And so we would have these conversations about immigration. Well, when we talked, because there was a respect for one another's point of view, we found common solutions, and it's like we got through those quicker than like they did in Congress.
Yeah.
And I just, like I didn't vote for Trump, right?
Yeah.
So, but I had friends who I know they weren't racist, they weren't bigots, but they voted for Trump. And so I would say, help me understand.
Yeah.
Why did you vote for Trump? Well, they had certain reasons in their own way. Now, they wouldn't vote again, They said, okay, I was wrong, I didn't think it didn't come out the way I thought. But, but what happened was our relationship was more important than our political point of view.
You going somewhere with that one. That's good. I wanted to say, I was just thinking of something when you was talking, and that last point you just said brought something up, how relationships should be so much more important than our different points of view. And I think that this is so good, Jerry. Oh my God. I had an experience, and this is not just the first time that this has happened, but it's the first time I stopped and thought about it. Like, wow, okay, this is why it's so necessary and so important to first ask what's going on. There's this experience that I went through just recently. Someone came and asked me a question about, not even asked a question, but just told me, you're not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that, you're not supposed to do this. And what I received from that, I was hurt from it. I really felt bad from it. I'm like, you don't know what was going on though. Like, what caused me to do this? And I learned from that situation how important it is to ask questions and to conversate, to communicate with a person, because by doing so, you can get an understanding why they did what they did, and that is what I think is what creates a lot of division. You get what I'm saying? From us being able to build these walls, use the walls to build these bridges, to use our understanding, to use our mistakes, and to help others grow, benefit from them, and then also using our, the gentle, the love that we've been given, the spirit of love that we've been given. And I think that it's easy, to know. It's easy to say it, but sometimes it's hard to recognize, because it's a practice, like you said, like it's something that we practice. It's something that we set out to do. But, as those things were said, I just realized, okay, wow, it is so important to always ask the person the question first before casting my point of view or my judgment on a situation, because at the end of the day, I could easily either be like, oh man, look foolish because I did that, or, I could hurt the other person in the process because they're a person who's an introvert who doesn't want to speak. And, it creates a lot of conflict and problems in relationships. And so I think that, that is so true. Jerry, we have to get to that place where, we are open to conversate and get different points of views and, move forward. Like that great illustration, from different political situations, but to still have a common ground where you guys can talk and be friends and fellowship. You know, like that is what's needed. You know, today. You know, in our world. You know, in relationships.
You know, I mean, that's so true. There's a story of this KKK member who, his heart was changed because this guy of color who moved in and lived beside him, and the guy who was KKK ended up getting paralyzed and in a wheelchair, and his neighbor started caring for him and bringing food to him, and you know, I mean, he was totally opposite, you know, and in some way, the guy who was black could have easily like hated the guy who was KKK because these people have done such terrible things to him, but he came with a heart of forgiveness.
That's good.
And it changed the guy who was a KKK. He renounced his movement of that, and it's this wonderful on YouTube of their story, and it just reinforces in me about the power of forgiveness. And I'm not saying, you know, you need to put yourself in front of an abusive situation.
Oh yeah.
and there are abusive people, right? And situations. But when the time is right, if we can reach out in a way of kindness or compassion to somebody, I always say loving our friends is easy. Loving the other brings shalom.
Ah, wow.
The word shalom is wholeness. It is bringing a wholeness to our world.
Wow, that's so good. Wow. Listen. I really don't want to cut this conversation short. This has been awesome. We've been diving into this almost about an hour now, and this conversation has been so insightful. I'm pretty sure that there's been so many people that's been blessed from this conversation, that received so much insight and so much, relationships from this conversation here. And I'm excited about this. And before we get up off of here, Jerry, I wanted to say, is there anything like that is like just burning in your heart, burning in your spirit, burning in your, you know, your mind, you know, that needs to be like communicated to, you know, somebody, you know, because somebody's watching right now and they heard us, they listen, they like, man, you know, they have some questions. So is there anything that's on your heart that's burning that you can share with that person?
I would say the one thing is, don't give up on God, because God hasn't given up on you. And you might feel like you're going down this rabbit hole of darkness. But if you take a moment and try to step outside of that, make a list of what you're grateful for, find some way, you're not alone on this journey. You're not alone. And other people who will come into your life to help you. I want to thank you for your spirit of generosity, your spirit of love. You know, if we were closer and we were in the same town, I mean, you're a dynamic individual, and I hope your listeners, I know they love your podcast, and you know, if somebody wants to contact me, they can go to jerryzair.com. That's my website, and they can reach out and I'll talk to them, or and they, you know, to get the book, and they can go on Amazon or on my website, The Peacemaker's Path. Wow. Multi-faith reflections to deepen your spirituality. Thank you for inviting me to be here, my friend.
Yeah, most definitely, man. It was such a pleasure talking with you. And you know what I'm saying? Ladies and gentlemen, Jerry Zair. And listen, I'm excited, you know, to even listen back at this conversation, because I know that there were so many different things that, you know, like I heard, but I want to listen to, I want to meditate on, I want to, you know, go back and get more of, you know, that moment. And so I just want to say thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your just thank you for being, you know, so open and so transparent, you know, concerning all that you've learned, you know, because to know that there are people in the world that are still human, that love to connect with people and that love to, you know, just, you know, interact with each other. I think that is the most Christ thing. You know what I mean? The greatest the greatest of those commands is loving, each other. And love is all of those things, you know what I'm saying? And love extends in the darkness, love extends in, tragedy. I mean, whatever situation, love is something that is evident, in those situations when it's properly given. And I think that is so important, Jerry. So I'm grateful for your ministry, just for your kind words and just for you reaching out. And, I just wish that, that we can, continue to, just grow together, and maybe we can do another just vocal podcast, anything. But I'm just excited for what, this conversation has done, you know what I'm saying, for me, and what it's going to continue to do. And I'm excited to listen back at it. So yeah, like we reached our hour mark. Jerry, is there any last words, any last thing you want to say before I do this commercial, this last commercial?
No. Let me just say God bless to your wife. What's your wife's first name?
Charlene.
Charlene,
yeah.
God bless her, Charlene. I mean, you got a handful with this guy, so God bless you both.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Well, thank you guys. Listen, I'm so grateful that you guys tuned in with us today. This has been such a privilege to be able to talk to my brother, Jerry Zara. He's just such a wonderful man of God, and just truly transparent, open, honest, and just easy to get along with, and has such a kind and generous spirit. And I'm just grateful to now know him in the faith, and just to know his journey and what he's been through. It's been so impactful for me. It's really just changed my life and helped me to see it's okay, to be able to communicate and have relations with others of the other faith. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just learning that we should love each other, and just growing in relationships with one another is the most important thing that I believe that Jesus desires for us all to do. And that's just something that, I know will win the hearts of, someone who is saying that this life has nothing for me. And I just know that this is the biggest thing that is needed in the world today. So listen, guys, thank you for dropping on. I want to encourage you guys to share this. If you're watching on YouTube, I want to encourage you to hit the subscribe key and the notification bell. By doing so, you'll never miss none of my videos. Also, I want to encourage you guys to reach out to Jerry as well. We're going to put his information in the description. That way you can contact him, get in contact with him, and be able to, fellowship with him and on different levels, from his book to whatever, avenues he has open. I'm truly grateful, or truly honored to be able to share that information with you guys. And that's it, guys. Listen, thank you for tuning in. One last thing before I go. You already know, most definitely.
Hello. Want to get some Just Jesus wear? Head over to our website at justjesusclothing.com and pick up some Just Jesus wear. We have many things to choose from. We have clothes for men, clothes for women, and we have so much more on the way. I want to let you know that we're so thankful for the love and support you have shown our ministry. Thank you so much again. We love you, and God bless you. JustJesusClothing.com.